Alright, this is a game in the AMX CDC, the Tier 8 French premium medium tank. It's pretty fast. It has an okay gun on it. It's got pretty good pen. The gun handling is a little bit sketchy, but otherwise the tank is pretty solid. It's a little bit big, but it goes relatively fast. It's especially in a straight line. It bleeds a little bit of speed on the turns, but that's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have very much armor on it at all. It's very thin, 20 to 30 millimeters of armor all around, which means that you're really vulnerable to artillery. So the reason why I chose this particular round to highlight is not because we do anything fantastic here, but I just want to talk about, you know, a lot of times when during the stream and when you watch other people play, there's a sort of canon that people follow in terms of how they play maps against the puppy meta or with the puppy meta. And so the puppy meta for mines is typically to take the middle area, and usually in random matches anyways, whoever controls this middle area typically has a good advantage to win the game. It's not quite that black and white in organized play. There's a lot of other plays that people can make, especially like if you look at tournament play, which has less tanks, or even in clan wars type situations, which has, you know, the same number of tanks that you'd have in a random match. But what I want to talk about here is, so ideally this is the preferred play against the current PUBG meta on the North American servers. You know, I want to show sort of the rationale that you'll take to go someplace else, to a different place, and why, and how you sort of come to those sort of conclusions. And so in this particular round, I'm going to play this 1-2 line, and the reason why I decided to do that is primarily because of the compositions. When we look at the compositions of these teams, right, you look at their team, both of the teams are extremely heavy. They've got a bunch of tank destroyers, but they don't have any speed on their team at all. You know, their fastest tank is probably the E5. Well, actually, their fastest tank is probably the Object 261. But so they don't have any speed at all. So they don't really have a whole lot to take the hill. And so this is a situation where we know that we can get up to this hill pretty much unscathed, and we could probably do pretty well over here. But I want to show you sort of why playing this 1-2 is important and how it's important, particularly in this composition. So I view these two teams and I identify what I think is a composition mismatch, because we should be able to take the hill just, you know, if we just have the E50 go up there, right? That's all you really need. Someone to proxy them, someone to keep them back over here, and keep them honest. It's going to be a little bit tricky for me to push the hill in this particular tank, because if I do get spotted, like the IS-3 can potentially spot me if he pushes out to like this G4 area, then I can get one shot by their artillery. But that's not really too much of a concern. I'm going to play this one line, and so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to rush this one line because I know that they don't have the speed to counter it. They can send heavy tanks out here, but it's not that big of a deal because I'm going to be able to get to this H1 area that's going to be able to protect me from a lot of their fire. And again, so the reason why we're sort of looking at this replay is because, you know, I want to, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and we want to talk about other areas that you can go on these maps that are very effective but are not necessarily the primary place that you'd go to given the current PUBG meta. And in this situation, even if we didn't take the hill, like even though we have a speed advantage per se with the E50, the Panther 88, and technically myself, even if we didn't take the hill, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. You can sack the hill to them as long as you make them pay. But we know that it's going to be difficult for them to control the 1-2 line, because as I go down the 1-2 line, if anybody fills in these gaps behind, they're going to get a lot of great shots at these guys out here. Our artillery will get a lot of great shots, etc., etc., etc. So we're able to spot a T-30 moving out here, which is fine. So he's moving to that G4 position. So I'm just going to set up behind this rock. Right, and so before I cross further to the south, I want to make sure that my spot drops so that it already doesn't have an easy shot on me. Generally, the first place that artillery looks is this position right here. We had our 50B and our E50 take the top, so I'm not too concerned about that. And then I can use this ridge here to protect me from direct fire. And so now playing this K line over here gives me a lot of advantages. Our guys on this side aren't too far forward, but it's not that big of a deal because they haven't pushed anybody out here, right? They didn't try to, you know, like let's say get a T-32 into this area right here, right? They're all sitting in the back, so that's an advantage to us. We've got a few tanks over on this side. Looks like they've got a lot of their heavy tanks over here. So they're basically clustered around this hill. We've got a sort of counter force on both sides, but we control the top of the hill. And so this is going to be really easy for me. So typically artillery are back in this lane over here someplace, either this K8, K9 area. If you're on the south side of this K line, depending on the artillery you're up against a 261, he's not going to really have really good shots on us, particularly the further east we go, the less he's going to have, because we've got these big mountains that are ahead of us. If they move north, which they'll be reluctant to do because we own the hill, then they'll get better shots on you. But for the most part, I don't have to worry about artillery. And since they're not trying to push across on me, it's not that big of a deal. If they were trying to push across on me, what I would want to do is try to light them for our guys over here to get shots of them as they sort of cross through this slow water area here. But that's not really a problem. And then so what you'll see is that from the position that I'm in, I'm going to start getting some good shots on these guys, and it's pretty easy. And I'm just sort of looking around and making sure that I can't get shot, or these guys aren't pushing me from over here. Otherwise, I'm just, for the most part, getting shots. And then, you know, so what you see is that these guys that are on the back of the rock, and so a lot of times you'll get heavies on the back of this rock here. It's really easily countered from this K1 position. Our guys don't have to do anything up here, right? These guys are relatively safe from artillery, but they're not safe from me. So I can push them out of that position by just being in the position, the K1 area where I'm at. Of course, I actually have to shoot them. Okay, I actually have to shoot them and damage them. Which is sometimes a struggle. But you'll see, like that T-30, he can't stay there. And then even as they back up here, right, if our 50B or our E50 are proxying them on this side, it's still really easy for me to get shots on these guys. I'm pulling off of these shots a little bit early.
It's a trap!
But you'll see that they push through on this northeast side, but it's not really that big of a deal because we've really decimated them on this 4 line. They've got a couple of guys back here, but that's not really that big of a deal. They actually have less guys back there than you would normally anticipate, given that they actually had 4 tank destroyers. Normally tank destroyers come pretty far back on the K line on this map, but in this case they have their JPE on the base side, and their Tortoise went around with the rest of their force. But we still control the hill, we still control this side, and we cleared this side, and so that's the important part, is that you want to be able to clear this before they come all the way around, because if they can get all the way around, they can get your team in a pincer. But as long as you've cleared it out, then you've got all this area now that you can work in. And then from this position, right, we've got good map control, particularly on this west side, right? We've got this locked down. It's an easy matter to light these guys and allow our guys to get shots on them. Right, and especially like this E50 on the hill is going to be able to get good shots into the side of this JT. And we've got some guys behind me who sort of are in position to shoot these guys. This T-32 can shoot into this T-34 right now. These two guys can't really, they're not really in a good position to shoot anything. And see how they've sort of started to wrap around this other side. It's really not that big of a deal. Ideally, you want to still protect the hill and counter them through this ramp right here, but our 50B slid off. It's not that big of a deal. And so our T-32 over here in this F1 position, and our E-50 in this 6th position. F6 position are both getting really good shots on these guys because they don't really have anywhere to run. So these guys are just getting whittled down, right? And we haven't really taken a whole lot of damage. I wanted to track him there, but I kind of missed that shot a little bit. And then I get shot by artillery, which is never fun. At this point, it's just mop up, so it doesn't really matter. And so we were able to finish off their push around the south side. They sort of ended up splitting there. They sent 2 forward and left 2 there.
It's a trap!
Okay. And again, the rest of that is, at that point, is pretty much mop up. And so really want to highlight it, and I talk about pushing 1-2 line a lot and when we play mines on the stream, but I very rarely do it because the hill is really important. It is more important to control the hill than it is to control the 1-2 line in the current PUBG meta. But if you can get it, like you'll see that even though I missed a lot of shots and bounced a lot of shots, you get a lot of really great shots, and you can really back them off of this 4-5 area. You can get shots down into this G6 area to some extent, and so you can actually back them off this entire southwest section of the hill, and that's actually pretty important for sort of clearing people out, particularly people who are going to be trying to proxy spot along this ridge right here, and so that frees up your guys that are on the ridge, and so we're able to do that because we looked at the comp ahead of time, and we knew that they weren't going to be able to match our speed. We knew that we were probably going to be able to take the hill, and that allows us to push down this one line and get good shots. And so it's not that we couldn't, so we could have played hill here, and that's not the sort of thing that we're sort of saying don't take the hill, take 1-2. You know, I'm not saying that at all. We could have played the hill. We probably would have been very effective on the hill. But what I want to highlight is that you should look at the comp of your team. You should look at the comp of the other team, and you should decide, you know, can I go here? You know, am I going to be effective if I go down here? And so if they had a much faster team where I knew that they were going to take the hill, where I knew they could possibly, like, let's say instead of an E5 and a T57 up top, they had, you know, 2 Russian mediums, then I would probably push hill with my guys and make sure that we could take that, for a couple of reasons. One, because it would help us take the middle, and 2, because if like one of those Russian mediums came out here, he would be able to bully me, right? I would be sort of stuck on this H1 area, and he could just bully me, and that would be the end of my game. And so compositions are really important for deciding, you know, how you're going or where you're gonna deploy, at least initially. And then the rest is just common sense. You know, it's what we've always talked about: read and react, look and see what's happening. Are you in a good position? Are you in a bad position? If you're in a good position, you know, bully. If you're in a bad position, you know, try to get yourself out of it. All right, and so what we'll do is we'll look at the stats, and our team really just bullied them. The fact that they couldn't take the hill is always going to be a problem. So you look at our 2 tanks that went up on the hill. The E50 did 2.3, the 50B did 5.9. So we were able to milk a lot of damage out of that hill control, and especially we were able to get a lot of damage based off of those guys on the 4 line. And so because we really beat up their guys that, you know, went part way up to the hill, you know, the T32, T30, KV4, you know, that group, that really hurt them, and even though they were able to push around the town side, they weren't able to do it fast enough or efficiently enough because we had so much map control on that west side that we were just punishing their team the entire time. Unfortunately, my shooting was not fantastic. 21 to 25 is not good, but only 13 pans. A lot of those shots, you know, usually will pan a little bit more, like especially those shots on the T30. But the accuracy on the CDC gun is not fantastic. I pulled up back on a lot of those shots on the T32s, for example, that were probably more my fault than the gun's fault. But we're still able to do a decent amount of damage. We were able to do some assisted damage as well because of we can spot into that southwest corner of the hill from our position. So anyways, I hope that helps as far as, you know, I want you to think of, you know, when the maps start, it shouldn't be always, oh, we're playing mines, I'm in a medium, I'm doing this. I'm playing Lakeville, I'm in a heavy, I'm doing this. You should start taking into account what tanks you're going to see when you get to wherever you're going to go, and that should be part of the equation of how you get set up. And you know, I think it's important, particularly if you're just playing random matches, to play different areas on the map, not to just be really good in one area, although that's nice. To be able to play different areas of the map is important, because you're going to have to do that at some point in a lot of games. Alright, so anyways, I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.